Hello and welcome to the readers of the Whispers of Calm channel. This channel shares knowledge and relaxes the soul through books and music every weekend based on personal experiences. I hope they will be useful to you, helping your life become better and more interesting. Have you ever had a childhood experience like this? When you were little, you felt like a lonely planet. In the house, there were only you and two giants. Those giants had unpredictable emotions. There were days when you didn't understand what you did to upset them, and suddenly they would get angry. At that moment, you didn't know how to communicate with them, so you felt very helpless. Gradually, as a once innocent child, you began to be more cautious about many things, especially having to pay attention to their eyes, emotions, and words. Then, as you grew a little older, you realized that whatever you wanted to do had to go through your parents' final decision. Somewhere, you could still hear the empathy through such helpless confessions. My father forced me to change my aspirations for university entrance. My mother resolutely separated me from my boyfriend just because she didn't like him. No matter what clothes you wore, what you ate, which school you chose, where you worked, who you loved, or who you married, many children in this society can only follow their parents' orders. Throughout the process of growing up, your life was accompanied by feelings of resentment, frustration, anger, and suffocation. If you feel this way, it is very likely that your parents are emotionally immature and you are living under their control. Some say childhood is childhood. When you grow up, it will be different. When you reach adulthood, have a job, start a family, and live independently, you will no longer be controlled by your parents. But in reality, even if you are over 50 or 60 years old or have a successful career, if you still cannot understand your inner self, do not know how to recognize whether your parents are emotionally immature or not, then the wounds within you will never heal, and the control of your parents may follow you persistently until the end of your life. Furthermore, it can cause you trouble in relationships, difficulties in expressing emotions, and even an inability to recognize your true needs. And if you inherit all of this from your parents, your children will also have to live with emotionally immature parents. This is a never-ending, vicious cycle. Dr. Lin Jin has provided practical tools in the famous psychology book, When Parents Are Emotionally Immature, to help you protect yourself when interacting with emotionally immature parents, reclaim emotional autonomy, and heal the inner child within you. With all the experience of a clinical psychologist, the author can help you escape from the shadows of childhood and walk forward with strength, knowing that we cannot change our origins, but we can choose how to live. What your family of origin owes you, you can completely reclaim for yourself. Now let's listen to today's sharing. The first question to understand our inner self is, living with emotionally immature parents, how do you often feel? The first feeling that almost everyone has experienced is loneliness. The loneliness of living with emotionally immature parents can sometimes be deceptive. When you feel you have parents but they are like none, along with loneliness comes helplessness. Helplessness arises from the emotional communication of parents. What is emotional communication? It is how they convey their true feelings to you. For example, when your mother comes home from work with a sullen face and doesn't say anything, you ask her if something is wrong, but she remains silent. Her silence is a form of emotional communication. There are no words, but it sends a signal to the child to guess why she is unhappy. The unpredictable expressions of emotionally immature parents are really no different from a child's game. They solve problems by transmitting emotions, creating a frightening atmosphere, making the child feel suffocated in their own home. After helplessness, pressure will arise. You often feel forced and find yourself in a difficult situation. The great Russian writer Leo Tolstoy once said, "Happy families are happy in their own way, but unhappy families are all alike." According to research, unhappy families share a common characteristic. As long as there is one member with a controlling personality, who always demands that others follow their wishes, then the members of that family will surely experience much pain and emotional trauma. The fourth characteristic is that you feel inferior, meaning your parents always put themselves first and do not care about your true feelings. For example, when you fail an exam, the first thing your parents worry about is how they will lose face. The next characteristic is that you feel your parents are distant from you. They do not want to be close, share feelings, or truly open up to you. Then you also feel disrespected. This feeling often occurs when parents do not respect your personal boundaries and individuality. For example, reading your diary, monitoring you, or trying to intervene and change your choices. Finally, after experiencing such negative feelings, you want to live differently. Many times you have tried your best to express yourself to your parents. You want to communicate and explain your true feelings to them. However, every time you only receive one-sided interactions with no results. Or simply, you feel uncomfortable when forced to do something. You feel sad because your parents behave unreasonably. But you are not allowed to speak up, simply because as soon as you say something, you are immediately scolded or ignored. Therefore, the feeling of disappointment always lingers within you, and you gradually do not want to express your true feelings anymore. The above are common feelings when interacting with emotionally immature parents. If you live long-term with one or more of these feelings, the final result is that you are unconsciously controlled by your parents and lose your emotional autonomy. But why are you controlled? How did your parents control you? In theory, when conflicts arise in the family, adults should take the initiative to take responsibility, because adults are more mature and need to maintain the atmosphere in the family. However, in reality, living in a home with emotionally immature parents, children have to play the role of adults. That is, they take on the responsibility of reconciliation. But since you are just a child, the only way to reconcile is to obey, comply, please your parents, or when conflicts arise, you need to apologize and take action to make amends first. Only then will the tension gradually improve. In this way, children gradually lose their emotional autonomy and spiritual freedom. We need to understand that the tool of control here is emotions. Emotions are a double-edged sword. If the emotion is joy, you will see it as a special gift and be very grateful. But if the emotion is pain, you will feel punished, deprived, and experience negative emotions when you have to interact with emotionally immature parents, which continuously repeats from childhood. Therefore, you will become extremely sensitive and have strong emotional reactions. An inappropriate word or unreasonable action from them can make you think, fear, worry, or feel sad for a long time. But the more you are affected by emotions, the more your parents can use emotions as a tool to control you, demanding that you do as they wish. If you do not comply, you will feel guilty and remorseful. But when you try your best to comply, you will begin to realize that you are no longer yourself. As a result, your life will face many failures, struggle to control your emotions, and when you start a family, you will be disappointed by your partner. This is the consequence of the control that arises. So why understand these things? Next, we will delve into the inner world of emotionally immature parents, understand who they are and why they have become like that. But who are emotionally immature parents? In reality, many parents are mature in age but emotionally immature. They may appear to be composed, handle work well, and communicate with others without issues. In fact, they may be very successful and hold high positions in society, but at home they are still just giant children. After research and practical treatment experiences, the author has summarized and classified 4 types of people who are considered emotionally immature parents. The first type is those with unstable emotions. These are people who often lose control of their emotions. They are very sensitive and react excessively to everything. In a short period, their attitude can change from being very caring to extremely indifferent. Just a moment ago, they were cheerful, and now they are angry. Because of such emotional fluctuations, they become unpredictable and create great pressure within the family. Additionally, they can be easily provoked, and when that happens, the whole family has to rush to comfort them. The second type is the overly proactive type. These parents are active and engaged, and on the outside, they may seem perfectly normal because they always try to care for and invest in their children. However, in reality, their excessive involvement in their children's lives leads to a lack of empathy. Such parents often force their children to behave in ways they deem appropriate. They tend to be authoritarian, intervening in everything their children do, setting high expectations, and can be very strict and difficult to please. Proactive parents are also often very busy. To meet their personal needs, they will do anything to build successful and outstanding children. As a result, they often feel frustrated and exhausted both physically and mentally. However, such parents do not care whether their children truly feel happy or enjoy what they do. They usually measure everything by goals. For example, what achievements their child has made, how many hours they must study in a day, how many advanced classes they must attend. In fact, if parents always talk to their children in terms of goals, it is extremely cruel. Just think about it. If you come home from work and your child asks you, "What is your KPI this month? What position did mom hold in the company? How much is the year-end bonus?" You certainly wouldn't want to go home at all. But strangely, many parents treat their children according to such standards. The third type is the passive type. These parents avoid all forms of conflict and tension. Although this may allow them and their children to coexist more easily, it also means they always make their children feel distant. They are not willing to have honest conversations with their children, do not proactively talk about feelings, share emotions, or stand up to protect themselves or their children when necessary. Finally, there are the rejecting parents. These are parents who crave solitude. They spend very little time with their children. Their interactions with the family usually occur only when something serious and important happens. They also lack patience and do not care about the needs of others. Most of the time, they communicate with their children through commands, anger, or separation. Children of such parents often feel uncomfortable and think they are unimportant to their parents. I wonder how many of you have grown up in such circumstances. Perhaps your eyes have watered many times, or you may have become too accustomed to the wounds, which over time have turned into scars. Or perhaps you yourself do not know whether you have truly matured in parenting or not. Today, our exploration of the immaturity of parents is not to blame each other, but to understand the inner world of parents and ourselves. After recognizing the 4 types of classifications above, we will continue to explore the deeper reasons why many parents live to be 40 years old, or even over 60 or 70, yet still do not mature. What leads to the emotional immaturity of parents? Research shows that a child will gradually mature when they receive genuine care and love from their parents. However, for emotionally immature parents, they have passed that stage. In fact, they are still just children yearning for attention. So the key reason here is that history repeats itself. Parents who lack emotional maturity often also have immature parents. When they were children, they were also hurt and lacked affection. Many of their strongest emotions may have been suppressed. They cannot explore or express their thoughts and feelings to develop healthy emotions, leading to limited self-management and emotional connection with others as they grow up. In fact, the giant children in your home may appear rigid on the outside, but inside they are very vulnerable. Because they have not received care or healing for a long time, they have had to build a psychological defense wall. This wall is to protect them from feelings of insecurity. It is precisely because of this lack of a sense of security that they prefer to control and manipulate others. This reason leads them to have some inner characteristics as follows. When others do not prioritize me, I risk collapsing. This is the first inner voice of emotionally immature parents. Children often have a self-centered personality, and immature adults never truly abandon their childlike instincts. They always consider themselves first, so it is best for their children to obey, comply, and provide positive feedback. Only then will their emotions stabilize. To maintain this protective wall, they must establish a hierarchy by clearly distinguishing roles. You will notice that some people come from difficult backgrounds, working hard to rise. But when they live comfortably, hiring help, they treat those workers very harshly, clearly distinguishing between superior and inferior. Why is that? Because they believe that those are people they hire with money, so they have the right to do so. This is the definition of a person based on roles. Similarly, if parents define people in a household by different roles, what responsibilities do the children have? What should the eldest sibling do? What about the youngest? each role will create undercurrents, making everyone in the family feel unfair and distant from each other. On the other extreme, there are parents who protect their psychological walls by being indifferent. These individuals are sensitive, lack emotional control, or fear expressing feelings. Both of these extremes can lead them to mental health issues such as depression, narcissistic personality disorder, or borderline personality disorder. Next, after considering themselves as the top priority, the next inner statement will be, "I am always right." Emotionally immature parents cannot self-reflect. This means they cannot admit their mistakes because they believe that if they admit to being wrong, their protective wall will collapse, so they cannot be wrong. Such parents resemble children with a distorted view of the world. Once they form an opinion, they cannot change their perspective. They can become extremely defensive when challenged. A person who lacks self-reflection cannot withstand external pressure. They will have to immediately release their emotions when they return home, making them easily irritable with family members. Especially highly educated individuals who are emotionally immature will have even thicker and higher walls. The author states that a person's intelligence may not extend to the emotional world. This means that some people are very competent at work, solving all external social issues very well, but their emotional world is empty. Such individuals find it even harder to reflect on their parenting. This is also the deep-rooted reason and the inner characteristics of the 4 types of emotionally immature parents. So now, facing this toughest step of maturity, what should children do to heal and save themselves? The author points out that to free oneself from the control of emotionally immature parents, the core way is to establish boundaries for oneself. Many people mistakenly believe that establishing boundaries to avoid harm means cutting off sensitivity to emotions in front of their parents. For example, if parents yell or scold, it's okay. To protect myself, I will close my heart and numb my emotions. Or some people leave home, live alone, and ignore their parents. Such emotional numbness, if it accompanies you for many years without healing, will cause you problems in expressing emotions with others. You will also cut off emotional connections with your own children, and the cycle of pain will continue. Establishing boundaries is not about separating oneself from the inner world, nor is it about running away from conflicts, but rather to allow you to stand at a safe distance, directly face, clearly recognize the issues, and handle them better. This is also the first step for us to establish boundaries. Children who grow up with emotionally immature parents often live in resentment and feel unloved. Why do parents treat me this way? But now, when you have the awareness to establish boundaries, you will understand that in fact, parents also lack the ability to express love. It is very likely that your parents also lack emotional maturity. Now that you understand why they are like that and know that it has nothing to do with you, you did nothing wrong. Recognizing the problem and immediately stopping the exhausting internal battle is the first important step. Next, you need to stop being overly concerned about your parents' immature behaviors. For example, if your father gets angry and breaks a bowl in front of you, if you have not escaped from his shadow, you will surely be startled, and your whole body will tense up. At this moment, some people will apologize and comply, while others will confront by arguing or immediately leaving. But both of these ways show that you are still too focused on your parents' immature behaviors. So the best way is to pause for a minute, quietly breathe, then calmly talk to your father. In reality, saying this is easy, but when it comes to practice, it is very difficult because your bodily reactions cannot deceive you. You will be startled, suddenly fall into a state of anxiety, and then lose control. Therefore, you need to give yourself plenty of opportunities to practice, gradually adapting. Finally, learn to smile in the face of everything. The third tool for building boundaries is to learn to refuse unreasonable demands from emotionally immature parents. Living under the pressure and demands of emotionally immature parents, the hardest thing for you is always to say no. You find it very difficult to say this word because you fear that if you refuse, you will feel guilty. You fear they will get angry. You fear they will criticize you. You fear you cannot foresee the consequences. Pay attention to the word fear that is repeatedly mentioned here, because it is the deep-seated inner obsession within you, but now you need to confront it directly. If you are constantly afraid, it means you truly do not want to mature. Once you are afraid, you will continue to fall into the vortex of being controlled. So, to refuse rationally, you need to train yourself in critical thinking. In many books, I continuously emphasize the importance of critical thinking. Believe that critical thinking is an important tool in your life. We often talk about the fear of being brainwashed, but being brainwashed by others is not as dangerous as brainwashing yourself. For example, if your parents demand that you pay off their debts while your own life is very difficult. If you do not use critical thinking to interact, you will believe that as a child, you naturally have to pay off your parents' debts. But thinking this way is self-brainwashing. In this case, if you proactively face them without fear and use critical thinking to resolve the issue, you will learn to ask yourself, besides what they say to you, what is the truth? What evidence can verify whether these things are true or false? Then you must evaluate how serious the crisis your parents have caused. Is this an emergency? Is their demand on you the best solution to the problem? Can they solve the problem themselves when they calm down? Is this issue your responsibility? After self-reflecting with a series of comprehensive questions, you will surely be able to calm down and return to establish your boundaries without being emotionally affected by your parents anymore. When calm, you can make wiser decisions and handle issues more appropriately. Critical thinking will help you have enough confidence and rationality to refuse unreasonable demands from emotionally immature parents. Perhaps by now you are still afraid, wondering whether refusing and not complying with your parents is a mistake. Training in critical thinking can help you resolve issues without carrying subjective and biased views. But if we consider conscience, to know whether you are making the right choice, the most fundamental way is to know what you want. Many times we are often led by others because we do not know what we want or where we want to go. Therefore, first, you need to think carefully about what outcome you want for yourself, what kind of life you want, and then aim for that goal and strive for it. Our pain often lies in the fact that although you do not want to listen to your parents, you also do not know what you want to do, so you drift into confusion. Just let it be. Just follow them. Another important reason for feeling guilty when not listening to your parents is that you have become accustomed to the role of a savior for your parents. Therefore, next, you need to learn to abandon the role of the savior. Research shows that sensitive children with strong empathy are more easily controlled by their parents. Often, parents do not even need to make demands. These children proactively take responsibility for themselves. They revolve around their parents' emotional ups and downs while feeling exhausted and suffering. Many people have confided to me that even after starting their own families and living independently, their parents still argue every day, and they feel compelled to return home to mediate. Having to worry about both sides makes them feel extremely burdened and exhausted. If it were you, what would you choose to do? Often, many people will think that as a child, they naturally have responsibilities. How can they just ignore their parents? However, thinking this way also means allowing yourself to take on the role of a savior. In reality, your parents are adults, so they need to take responsibility for their own actions. If you intervene in their lessons, they will never mature. And once you become accustomed to the role of the savior, they will very much like you to continue playing this role. Initially, there may not be much to gain from your attention, but now that you can participate, they feel very good and have found this opportunity. Therefore, their conflicts will increase, and you need to abandon this dependent relationship. From now on, focus more on yourself, explore your own values and weaknesses. Remind yourself that everyone has their own fate. Your parents' lives do not need you to save them. Another useful tool is to avoid conflicts and choose a more tactful way to interact with emotionally immature parents. As mentioned, emotionally immature parents often center themselves, trying to use emotions to pressure their children. If the children refuse and do not meet their demands, they will become angry and irrational. Therefore, the best way is, instead of refusing and confronting them directly, try to avoid confrontation. Sometimes, just smiling and finding another way to minimize conflict is enough. And a way to be more tactful is to learn to empathize with their feelings. We do not agree with their actions, but we can empathize with their emotions. For example, you can say, "Mom, I know you are very angry," or "Dad, I know you are really worried about me," etc. This is a compromise and mutual concern between family members. You are also showing them what it means to behave like a mature person. Therefore, this is a very effective method. Another way is to use imagination. For example, if you come home and your mother suddenly gets angry, scolding you for no reason, or continuously complaining and blaming you for everything, at this moment, you can apply the imagination technique. Imagine the voice of a duck quacking, and you will find that her words are no longer serious. Or, if you cannot stand it, go out for a walk, run, or take a stroll. All of these actions create space for yourself. This is also a method of self-protection, and at times, you need to be brave enough to stop them. For example, if you are being hit or insulted, you need to find a way to stop it. This is your right as an adult. Speaking of an important tool to escape control, it is to actively eliminate negative perceptions. To easily make their children obey them, emotionally immature parents often use derogatory words, blame or deny, such as, "If you don't listen to me, you will only suffer. I have sacrificed my whole life for you. Why are you like this? You are my child. Why are you doing this? Why are you so irresponsible?" Do not let such words mislead you. Also, do not use them to label yourself negatively. Instead, remind yourself, "I did nothing wrong. I have tried my best, and even if I fail, it is part of growing up." Many affirmations and self-motivations will help you gain more confidence and courage, not allowing others to define you anymore. And just by gradually practicing these tools every day, you will slowly clarify your boundaries. When you have your own space, you can easily identify yourself and live as your true self. But ultimately, instead of constantly fighting against the wounds from emotionally immature parents, instead of focusing on them, the best way is to shift your focus to enhancing yourself. Focus all your energy on activities that help you become confident and create value for society. However, to develop yourself comprehensively, one essential task is to turn inward. You need to maintain a connection with your inner self, unconditionally accept yourself. Everyone makes mistakes. You can also make mistakes, but you cannot hate and reject yourself. Only by accepting yourself can you accept the outside world and others. Moreover, you need to accept the past while looking towards the future. This statement is very important. Do not listen to this book and then go home to argue and reason with your parents, thinking that they are giant children, so you do not respect them and feel that you are truly unfortunate. Accepting the past means you view everything that has happened in the past as the most reasonable thing in your life. Your parents have done their best within their awareness. At the very least, they have given you the opportunity to live and be healthy until now. And because you do not know what they have gone through, do not know how they felt in their childhood, blaming and resenting them will only make you less mature. You need to mature, learn to accept, understand them, love them, be willing to be grateful, and accept the past. Looking towards the future means we develop together, grow together. If parents cannot change, at least you have matured. When you mature, the sky, the atmosphere, and the sunlight in your life will also change. They will be warm and radiant, spreading around you. Remember that when you change, the world will change. When you mature, your parents will also mature. Most importantly, I believe that stepping out of the pain of childhood and ending the never-ending cycle of giant children will start with you. Thank you for listening. If you find this video helpful, please share it with those who need it. Give me a like, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell to catch my latest weekly videos. Once again, thank you, and I look forward to seeing you in the next videos.